Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Evan. Here is what happened when my girlfriend of 2 years asked us to be just friends. Allison and I had been together for 2 years when everything fell apart. Those 2 years felt significant, like we were building towards something permanent. We met during our last year at the University of Washington in Seattle. She was studying marketing, and I was finishing up a degree in mechanical engineering. We met at a mutual friend's party, hit it off immediately, and started dating within a few weeks. The relationship felt perfect from the beginning. We spent most of our free time together that last semester of college, studied together, went to parties together, and talked about what we'd do after graduation. After we graduated, I secured a job at an aerospace manufacturing company in the area, offering a good salary, benefits, and a stable career path. Allison went into digital marketing for a tech startup. Also good money, though her hours were less predictable than mine. I got my own apartment. 1 bedroom, small but nice. Allison stayed living with her parents. They had a big house with plenty of space, and she said there was no point paying rent when she could save money living at home. Our relationship continued smoothly through that first year post-college. We'd alternate spending time at my apartment and at her parents' house when they were out. We took weekend trips, met each other's extended families, integrated into each other's friend groups. I loved her, saw a future with her, started thinking seriously about marriage. Around the 18-month mark, I started bringing up the topic more directly. Not proposing, just discussing the trajectory. Asking if she saw us getting married eventually. Talking about timelines for engagement, for buying a house together, and for starting a family. Allison would engage with these conversations, but never with full enthusiasm. She'd say things like eventually, and when the time is right, and let's not rush anything. I didn't push too hard. Figured she just needed time to be ready. But then, even without me pushing too hard, the dynamics between us changed. Allison gradually became emotionally distant. She started canceling plans more frequently. Would text an hour before we were supposed to meet, saying she was tired or not feeling well or had too much work. When we did see each other, she'd seem physically present but mentally elsewhere. I'd tell her about my day, and she'd nod along, but clearly not really listening because she's on her phone. Physical affection declined sharply. She'd give me quick pecks goodbye instead of real kisses. When she managed to spend the night at my place, she would say she was too tired when I tried to initiate anything more intimate. Her explanations were always vague. I just need some space. I need to get my mind together. Work has been really stressful. I sensed something was off, but didn't confront her immediately. I observed, watched the pattern develop. Her texts became less frequent and took longer to answer. She went from texting me throughout the day to maybe responding once in the evening. I started to suspect something, but didn't want to jump to conclusions. Didn't want to be the jealous, paranoid boyfriend. Then, about 2 months into this pattern of distance, Allison texted asking if we could meet for dinner. Said she wanted to talk about something. My stomach dropped when I read that message. I knew what was coming. We met at a casual Italian restaurant near my apartment, somewhere we'd been several times before. She arrived, not making eye contact. We ordered food, made awkward small talk about work. Then, after the main course arrived, she said it. "Evan, I think we should just be friends." I set down my fork, looked at her, waited for her to elaborate. I knew something was coming, but not this. She said she wasn't ready for something as serious as I clearly wanted. That she didn't want to hold me back from finding someone who was ready. Adding that it felt like we'd lost the spark we used to have. All the classic breakup lines were delivered with artificial sympathy. I sat there for a moment, processing everything. Part of me wanted to argue, to point out that she'd created the distance, that you don't lose a spark, you actively kill. But another part of me, the part that still had some self-respect, just felt tired of this game. So I simply said, "If that's what you want, okay. Friends, it is." Her eyes widened slightly. She'd clearly expected me to fight for the relationship, to beg her to reconsider. to make some grand gesture proving my devotion. Instead, I signaled the waiter for the check. Paid for both our meals. Seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Then stood up and told her I hoped she found what she was looking for. I left the restaurant, got in my car, and drove home. Back in my apartment, I sat down, feeling like I had been gutted, but maintaining an outward calm. Later, I'd find out from mutual friends that my composed reaction had thrown her off completely. She told people she was surprised I didn't fight for us. That my easy acceptance felt like I'd never really cared that much. Which was absurd. Idee cara deeply. I'd wanted to marry her. But I wasn't going to grovel for someone who'd already mentally checked out of the relationship months ago. For the next 2 weeks, I went quiet. No text to Allison. No checking her social media. No reaching out to mutual friends to ask how she was doing. I was in pain, but I kept it private. Went to work, did my job, came home, watched TV, and ate my meals. I just existed in this numb state while trying to process the loss. Then, about 2 weeks after the breakup, I got a text from someone unexpected. Layla, Allison's best friend. Layla and I had always gotten along well. She was part of Allison's core friend group. They'd been close since high school. She'd always been friendly and kind to me. Her text said she'd heard about the breakup from Allison. She asked how I was doing and said that if I needed someone to talk to, she was available. I didn't respond immediately because I wasn't sure what to make of the outreach. Was this Allison sending her friend to check up on me? Some kind of test? But Layla followed up a day later with just a simple message saying she was here if I needed anything. No pressure. I replied briefly, said I was handling it. Appreciated her checking in. She responded warmly, said breakups were hard and it was okay to not be okay. We started texting occasionally. Nothing deep at first. Just casual conversation. She'd send funny memes or articles she thought I'd find interesting. I remained somewhat guarded. I wasn't sure I could fully trust that this wasn't some kind of setup. But Layla was persistent without being pushy. Would check in once or twice a week, keeping things light. After about a month of these casual exchanges, she suggested we grab coffee. Said it might be good to get out and talk to someone who understood the social circle. I agreed hesitantly. We met at a coffee shop. Talked for almost 2 hours about everything except Allison initially. Work, hobbies, shows we were watching, and plans for the upcoming holidays. Then, toward the end, Layla brought up the breakup. Asked if I was doing okay with everything. I admitted it had been harder than I'd let on. That I'd really thought Allison and I were building towards something permanent. Layla's expression shifted. She looked almost guilty. She asked if Allison had given me a real reason for the breakup. I repeated what Allison had said, not ready for serious, lost the spark, and didn't want to hold me back. Layla was quiet for a moment, clearly debating whether to say something. Then she told me the truth. There was another guy. Someone Allison worked with at her startup. A senior marketing manager she'd been collaborating with on projects. According to Layla, Allison had been interested in this guy for a long time. Had been getting attention from him. Allison had apparently told Layla she wanted to see where things could go with the coworker, but didn't want to technically cheat on me. Hence, the breakup was framed as her not being ready for something serious. I sat there absorbing this information, feeling anger and hurt wash over me in waves. It wasn't that she'd fallen for someone else. That happens. It was the dishonesty. The framing of the breakup as being about her not being ready for commitment, when really she just wanted to be available for someone else. Layla apologized for not telling me sooner. Said she'd been torn between loyalty to her friend and feeling like I deserved the truth. I thanked her for telling me now. Said it actually helped to understand what had really happened. We talked for another hour after that. About relationship dynamics, about honesty, about how people justify their choices. I left that coffee meeting feeling oddly lighter. Still hurt, but with more clarity about what had actually ended the relationship. Layla and I kept in touch after that. The texting became more frequent, more substantial. We'd meet for coffee every couple of weeks. I found myself looking forward to our conversations. Layla was easy to talk to, genuine. thoughtful in ways I hadn't experienced with Allison. But I was careful not to read too much into it. She was Allison's best friend. I was Allison's ex. This was probably just friendship, possibly a complicated friendship, but nothing more. 6 months after the breakup, I realized I'd largely moved on from Allison. I still thought about the relationship occasionally, but without the sharp pain. More like remembering something that happened to a different version of myself. Layla and I had gotten closer during those months. We'd grab dinner sometimes instead of just coffee. Go to movies together. Take walks around the city on weekends. I could feel something developing between us. Some kind of connection that went beyond just friendship. But I didn't want to rush anything. Didn't want to misread signals or complicate her friendship with Allison. Then, one evening after we'd gone to see a show at a local theater, Layla asked if we could talk in my car before she drove home. We sat in the parking lot, and she turned to me with this nervous expression. She said she needed to be honest about something. That she'd developed feelings for me over the past months. That she understood it was complicated, given her friendship with Allison, but she couldn't keep pretending it was just friendship. I sat there stunned. Not because I hadn't sensed something, but because hearing her say it out loud made it real. I told her I felt the same way. That I'd been afraid to say anything because of the Allison connection. We sat there talking for over an hour about what this might mean. About whether we should pursue something or if it was too messy. We didn't decide anything definitive that night. Just acknowledged that feelings existed on both sides. Over the next few weeks, we continued spending time together, but with this new awareness hanging between us. Then, about 7 months after my breakup with Allison, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I'd deleted but still recognized. Allison. The message asked point blank if I was seeing Layla. I stared at the phone, anger rising. She'd broken up with me 6 months ago to pursue someone else. What I did now was none of her business. I typed back, "That's a ridiculous question. You broke up with me. What I do with my life isn't your concern anymore." She responded immediately. "So you are seeing her. I can't believe you do this." I felt my patience snap. Typed back, "You dumped me to chase someone else. Don't act betrayed now." Then I added, "And don't tell me what to do with my life. You lost that right when you said let's just be friends." I blocked her number. I sat there for a while thinking about her audacity. She'd ended our relationship on her terms, moved on first, and now trying to police who I could spend time with. It crystallized something for me. Allison had thought the breakup was a safety net, not an actual ending. That she could explore things with another man while keeping me in orbit, available if things didn't work out. But I wasn't interested in being anyone's backup plan. I told Layla about the message afterwards. She sighed, said she wasn't surprised. Apparently, Allison had been asking her questions about me for weeks. Had I been seeing anyone? Was I doing okay? Did I ever mention her? Layla had been vague in her responses, not confirming or denying anything about our growing connection. I asked Layla if this was going to ruin her friendship with Allison. Layla was quiet for a moment, then said that honestly, the friendship had been strained for months anyway. We talked seriously about whether we should actually try dating, about the complications and potential fallout. In the end, we decided we cared about each other enough to see where things could go. That we'd been careful and thoughtful about this. That we deserved to explore something that felt genuine. We started officially dating around the 8-month mark after my breakup with Allison. We kept things relatively private at first. Didn't announce it on social media or tell all our friends immediately. Just enjoyed getting to know each other in this new context. But about a month into officially dating, Layla posted a photo of us at a game. Nothing overly couple-y, just the two of us smiling together. But the implication was clear. Within hours, I got multiple messages from numbers I didn't recognize. All from Allison using different phones, probably friends' phones, maybe burner apps. The messages were a mix of guilt-tripping and anger. How could you do this to me? After everything we had? You know how much Layla means to me, and you're using her to get back at me. I read through them all, feeling mostly tired. This was so predictable, so self-centered. I responded once, from one of the numbers, knowing she'd see it eventually. You said we should be friends. Friends support each other's happiness. I'm happy with Layla. If you were really my friend, you'd be happy for me. But we both know you only wanted me around as a backup option. I added, the relationship you treated casually is now valued deeply by someone who was there all along. That's not betrayal. That's the consequence. Then I blocked every number she'd messaged from. Layla told me later that Allison had confronted her by showing up at her apartment unannounced, demanding to talk. According to Layla, Allison had been furious, accused Layla of sleeping with me behind her back while we were still together, called her a terrible friend, said she'd violated girl code. Layla had stayed calm, told Allison that nothing had happened between us until months after the breakup, that Allison had no right to be angry, given that she'd left me for another man. From this confrontation, Layla found out that Allison's things with her new man hadn't worked out. He'd been interested, but not seriously. Allison had left angrily after, telling their mutual friends that Layla had betrayed her, had gone after her ex behind her back, was a terrible person. But Layla told me that she didn't regret it. Allison continued trying to reach me for a few more weeks. She even showed up at my apartment building once, though security didn't let her up. Each time she reached out with a new number, I blocked without responding. Eventually, the contact attempt stopped. Layla and I continued building our relationship. We were careful about it and didn't want to rush into something without a proper foundation. But it felt right. Looking back now, I feel mostly gratitude toward Allison. If she hadn't broken up with me, I'd probably still be with her. I probably would have eventually proposed, gotten married, and built a life with someone who wasn't fully invested. Allison had wanted to keep me as a backup plan, had thought let's be friends meant I'd stay in orbit around her life, available whenever she decided she was ready. But I'd taken her at her word. We were friends. Or rather, we were nothing, because friendship requires mutual respect, and she'd never actually respected me. And in that space she'd created by leaving, I'd found something real with someone who'd been there all along. Layla had seen how Allison treated me toward the end, had watched the relationship deteriorate, had apparently thought even back then that I deserved better. And now I had better. I had someone who showed up fully, communicated honestly, didn't play games or keep backup plans, and who'd risked an important friendship because she believed what we had was worth it. Allison had said I was too good for her. She'd been right, though not in the way she'd meant. I wasn't too good in some noble, martyred sense. I just wanted basic things that she hadn't been willing to give. Layla gave those things freely, and I gave them back. That's what partnership looks like. Not the performance Allison and I had been doing toward the end, but the genuine connection Layla and I had built. Sometimes I wonder if Allison learned anything from how things played out. If she understood that you can't end a relationship on your terms and then get angry when the other person moves on. That let's be friends doesn't mean stay available as my backup plan. That people aren't obligated to wait around until you're ready to appreciate them. Allison wanted her freedom to explore other options. I gave her that. And in the process, I found my freedom too. The freedom to be with someone who chose me first, who valued what we had instead of taking it for granted, who understood that love isn't about keeping backup plans. It's about showing up fully for the person you're with. That's what I have with Layla. And I've never looked back.